Fear. It hides in the corners of your mind, shaping the way you walk through life, dictating choices you don't even realize you're making. Fear is not just a passing emotion. It is one of the most powerful forces that govern human existence. But what if I told you that fear is less about danger and more about control? What if fear is not your enemy, but a mirror, revealing something essential about who you are and how you live? From the earliest days of humanity, fear kept us alive. The rustle in the bushes, the shadow in the dark, the sudden movement at the edge of your vision. Fear was the signal that told your ancestors to run, to fight, to survive. It was nature's alarm system, always prepared to sacrifice comfort for the sake of life itself. Yet as civilization evolved, the threats of predators faded, and the dangers of the natural world became less immediate. But fear didn't vanish. Instead, it adapted, shifting from the physical to the psychological. No longer do most of us fear lions in the night. Instead, we fear rejection, failure, humiliation, and death. Fear has woven itself into the very fabric of our inner world. Philosophers have long recognized that fear is more than a biological reflex. It is a lens through which we interpret existence itself. Epicurus, the ancient Greek philosopher, believed that much of human misery stemmed from two fears, the fear of death and the fear of the gods. By learning to understand and dismantle these fears, he thought we could live more freely. And centuries later, Soren Kierkegaard would take this idea further, arguing that anxiety and fear are not simply obstacles, but doorways to deeper understanding. Fear, in his view, is not just what holds us back. It is also what awakens us to freedom. But let's pause here. Think about your own life. How many decisions have you made not because you truly wanted them, but because you were afraid of the alternative? You stayed in a job you hated because you feared instability. You avoided telling the truth to someone you loved because you feared rejection. You kept silent when you wanted to speak because you feared being judged. Fear whispers in your ear and convinces you that comfort is safety, when in reality, comfort often keeps you imprisoned. Modern psychology echoes these insights. Fear activates the amygdala, flooding the body with adrenaline, tightening muscles, and sharpening focus. This is useful when a car swerves toward you on the highway, but less useful when you're about to give a presentation or when you're considering whether to pursue your true calling. Fear does not distinguish between survival and self-expression. To your brain, they both feel like life or death battles. This is why fear becomes a hidden ruler of human life. Most people are not aware of how much fear shapes their destiny. On the surface, you may say you want success, love, happiness, or freedom. But beneath that surface, fear quietly dictates what you allow yourself to pursue. Fear becomes the silent architect of your reality, placing invisible boundaries around your potential. Consider the world around you. Entire societies are built on the manipulation of fear. Politicians use fear to gain power, painting threats of enemies both real and imagined. Media thrives on fear, knowing that a fearful mind pays more attention, clicks more often, and stays more engaged. Even religions throughout history have used fear of punishment or damnation as tools of control. Fear is not only personal, it is collective, shaping civilizations as much as it shapes individuals. Yet within this apparent darkness lies a paradox. Fear is not only destructive, it is also revealing. The things you fear most often point to what you value most deeply. If you fear losing your family, it shows how much you love them. If you fear failure, it shows how much you long for achievement. Fear, when examined carefully, becomes a compass pointing toward meaning. It forces you to confront the truth about what truly matters to you. This is why so many philosophers, mystics, and spiritual teachers did not teach us to simply eliminate fear, but to transform our relationship with it. Stoics like Seneca argued that we must train the mind to face fear rationally, recognizing that most of what we dread never comes to pass. The Buddha taught that fear is born from attachment, and that liberation comes from releasing our desperate clinging. Even modern thinkers suggest that fear is not a problem to be eradicated, but a signal to be understood. Imagine for a moment that fear is not an enemy chasing you, but a teacher guiding you. Imagine that every time fear arises, it is asking you a question. What is it that you truly value? And what are you willing to risk for it? Instead of running from fear, what if you leaned closer, listened carefully, and allowed it to show you the path you're meant to take? Fear's greatest trick is making you believe that safety lies in avoidance. But true safety, if it exists at all, lies in courage, the willingness to act even when fear is present. The force that controls you can also be the force that awakens you. To understand fear's hold on us, we need to recognize how deeply it intertwines with freedom. Kierkegaard described this paradox clearly. He said that anxiety, which is closely related to fear, is the dizziness of freedom. When we stand before endless possibilities, our minds tremble at the weight of choice. Freedom is exhilarating, but it is also terrifying. Fear is not just the shadow of death, it is the shadow of life itself, reminding us of how much responsibility lies in our own hands. Think about it. Why do so many of us choose the familiar over the unknown, even when the familiar makes us miserable? It's because the unknown provokes fear. The mind would rather cling to what it knows than face the abyss of uncertainty. Yet in doing so, we chain ourselves. Fear creates the illusion that the prison of the known is safer than the freedom of the unknown. Nietzsche pushed this idea further. He argued that fear is what keeps us from fully embracing life. He saw how people often build systems, moral, religious, or political, to shield themselves from fear. They invent comforting illusions so they don't have to confront the raw chaos of existence. But Nietzsche challenged us to move beyond fear, to face life without illusions, and to create meaning even in the face of uncertainty. In his eyes, true strength comes from staring fear in the face and saying yes to life anyway. But how do we, ordinary people, live this truth in daily life? Consider how fear operates in small but powerful ways. You want to start a new project, but the fear of failure stops you. You want to express your feelings to someone, but the fear of rejection ties your tongue. You want to step into the unknown, but fear convinces you to wait, to delay, to postpone. And later never comes. Fear doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. And in those whispers, entire lives are shaped. The irony is that by obeying fear, we rarely achieve the safety it promises. You avoid speaking your truth to protect yourself from rejection, but the silence eats away at your soul. You avoid risk to protect yourself from failure, but the regret becomes heavier than failure ever could. Fear tricks us into trading the pain of growth for the pain of stagnation, and the latter is always the more suffocating of the two. Modern science shows that fear can even reshape our biology. Chronic fear, whether from stress, trauma, or constant anxiety, changes the brain's pathways. It heightens reactivity, lowers resilience, and traps us in cycles of avoidance. This is why many people live half-lives, never fully present, never fully alive, because fear has become their silent master. But if fear is so powerful, what can we do about it? The answer is not to destroy fear. It is to reframe it. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act while fear still lingers in your chest. The Stoics trained themselves daily to imagine loss, pain, and death, not to be pessimistic, but to make fear lose its grip. By rehearsing the worst, they robbed fear of its power to paralyze. Likewise, mindfulness traditions encourage us to sit with fear, to breathe into it, to observe it without judgment. In doing so, we learn that fear is not an enemy. It is an energy that can be harnessed. Look at the great stories of human culture. Heroes are not defined by the absence of fear. They are defined by their willingness to walk forward despite it. Frodo carries the ring, even though he fears the journey. Harry Potter walks into the forest knowing he might die. Neo chooses the red pill despite the terror of uncertainty. These stories endure because they mirror our own lives. We, too, must decide whether to let fear define us or to step forward into our own unknown. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: fear exposes truth. Fear reveals where your growth lies. The thing you fear most is often the exact place you must go if you want to evolve. If you fear speaking, then your voice is your path. If you fear love, then intimacy is your lesson. If you fear failure, then risk is your teacher. Fear is the map to transformation, but only if you are willing to follow it. So ask yourself, what has fear kept you from doing? What dream, what truth, what action have you postponed because the force of fear convinced you to wait? Life does not wait. Time does not pause until you feel ready. Fear will always be there. The question is, will you let it stop you, or will you let it sharpen you? The philosophers were right. Fear is a secret force that controls us. But they also knew something else. Fear is the doorway to wisdom. Every time you step into fear, you expand your life. Every time you face it, you reclaim your freedom. You cannot eliminate fear, but you can walk with it, side by side, until it no longer commands you. So let me leave you with this. What is the fear that controls you most right now? And what would your life look like if you refused to obey it? Share your answer in the comments. I'd love to know. And if this video has given you something to think about, remember to like it and subscribe for more explorations into the depths of philosophy, psychology, and the hidden forces that shape our lives.